Right now, we are as spoiled as we've ever been as photographers and videographers in this community than I think ever before, and it'll just only get better from here. You have things like open gate 6.2, dual card slots, spherical element lenses, all these things that used to be very, very rare and you had to pay such a high premium for. We're getting on entry-level lenses and entry-level cameras. That's a very big deal. The fact that you can get all this from not only first-party manufacturers, but third-party manufacturers, unless you shoot Canon. Rest in peace to the RF mount. But for everyone else, you have a plethora of things to choose from at different price points so that no matter what, you're not really being held back as much as you used to. If you don't have the budget to get something beyond the body, beyond your favorite lens, you've got something to pair it up with in your price range, whether used or new, that is going to give you a great bang for your buck and keep you relevant in the creative space for years to come. But when it comes to all of this, there is one group of items that are severely underrated to this day, and they get a bad rap. This group has the best bang for your buck, the best initial investment, and honestly, some of the best fun you're going to have, period, whenever it comes to photography and videography. And that is Chinese lenses, like this Light Lens Lab Elcan copy right here. And it goes for all of them, from TTArtisan, 7Artisans, it doesn't matter, Viltrox, anything from Pair Gear. Chinese lenses have gotten such a bad rap. There's reasoning for it, but the reasoning is going to seem unfair, but even more, it's a reason why a lot of you guys are missing out on fantastic quality and fantastic equipment for an amazing price. Chinese lenses have become such a huge deal, especially in the mirrorless game. Whether it's autofocus, whether it's manual focus, it hasn't mattered. Things coming out from Rokinon and Samyang bust out into the scene, especially for Sony whenever it came to the autofocus game a few years back, 2018, 2017. Now Samyang, Rokinon, and other Chinese manufacturers were making lenses for things such as EF mount before they came to Sony. But around the time the Sony a7 III came out was the first time that I really saw them take off. And even more, I own two of the lenses, the 35mm 1.4 and the 35-2.8 Pancake, both times separately, and they were fantastic. They performed well, and optically, they were very, very great. Now, you fast forward with lens manufacturers today, and you've got companies like Viltrox, who make fantastic lenses with great autofocus, great optical quality, spherical elements, and even more than that, the lenses are fast and weather sealed, and it kind of just adds to the lure of these Chinese lenses. Now, Viltrox makes these lenses for X mount, Z mount, FE mount, E mount, RF. Oh, I forgot. Not RF. But it doesn't just stop there. There are other manufacturers that make manual focus lenses that are just as fun as their Japanese or German or wherever counterparts. TTArtisan, 7Artisans, Per Gear, Meike, Bright Star, they all make camera lenses that are honestly not only quirky and fun, but also optically great and a good bang for your buck. Bright Star just released a 28mm f2.8 Pancake lens that is a almost one-to-one copy of an MS optic lens for Leica M-mount. Leica has been getting amazing things from TTArtisan and 7Artisan, like their 28mm Sumerit copy, I believe is what it is. Their 50mm 0.095 is the closest that you will actually get to a medium format look in a full frame body. I bought a 7Artisan's lens that's a 50mm 1.1 that I absolutely adore because of its chromatic aberration and the ghosting look that it has in stills and in video. Then you run into Hong Kong lens manufacturers like Artra and Light Lens Lab, who make direct one-to-one copies, both cosmetically, both in build and optically, of old lenses like from Leica or Nikon. And these lenses are amazing, and this is where the mic drop happens. I got this lens for $700, which to a lot of people seems like a lot, but for the optical quality that I'm getting, which to me is better than my V4 Leica 50mm Summicron. Any of you Leica heads, you'll understand what I'm saying. If I was to get a Leica 50mm Summicron V4 or V5, which they both have the exact same formula, I would be paying almost $3,000 for that lens. And this lens performs exactly like those lenses. And the thing that is continuously the same across all of these is very, very simple. They're affordable and they're really, really damn good. And the funny thing is they get a bad rap even if someone hasn't had a bad experience with them. The amount of times online I hear people say never tried it but would never buy it, it's just cheap Chinese crap. kind of throws me off, because that comes from a stereotype of mass-produced products that are in a factory that have really not that good quality control. But the issue is that happens everywhere. There are plants in America, Canada, Mexico, UK, it doesn't matter, that produce mass quantities of things that don't have great quality control because they're producing mass quantities of things. It's not just a Chinese thing. Even more than that, I hear a lot of people say, well, those lenses don't last. The build quality doesn't hold up over time. Only the issue is these are new 1 to 2 year old lenses, and no one's been able to test the build quality or to say whether or not it lasts 10 to 15 years. Now, while I admit that there will be no surprises for me if a $79 lens gives out after a year, yeah, I will admit that. But at the same time, you're paying $79 for a year, and a lot of times it seems like people aren't even keeping the lens long enough to be even able to say that that's what happened. Now, people like to bring up their worries about longevity and reliability whenever it comes to these lenses, but I also hear the same thing every time a new first-party or trusted third-party lens is released. I mean, I can remember now people talking about Voigtlander's X-mount lenses, how when they were released, well, some don't focus to infinity. I've had issues with back focusing, etc., etc. Zeiss lenses for LM mount, I've heard the same thing. I've heard about build quality issues from first-party Nikon Z mount lenses and from first-party RF mount lenses and third-party RF. Oh, shit, I forgot again. Sorry, Canon users, you guys don't get to have fun. What I'm trying to say is this: we don't know how any of these things will hold up. Yes, on the cheaper ones, we've had issues, but I hear the exact same thing about plastic mount lenses like the 40mm f2 from Nikon, where people are worried about that as well. But at the same time, I don't hear people shitting all over it and saying not to buy it. And with the fact that these lenses are so cheap, sometimes anywhere from 400 to 1200% cheaper than your first party lens, another question has to be asked. Optically, is your first party lens or trusted third party lens 100, 200, 300, 400 to 1200% better than these Chinese budget lenses? This 50mm L-Can that I got for $700, the actual original copy of this, sells for $30,000. Trust me when I tell you this lens is probably better than that lens. But even more with this Viltrox 27mm f1.2. It's got a spherical planes, it's absolutely weather sealed, and has an STM motor. Do I think that this lens that I got for $400 and the Fujifilm 23mm 1.4, which is 2 times the price, do I think that the 23 is 2 times better than this Viltrox? Absolutely not. And I can stand on that because with every other Viltrox lens that I've used, tested, or rented, they've performed great. Now, do they perform as well or better as the Fujifilm counterparts? No. But they're not so much of a difference that it's going to interrupt my workflow or even worse, cost me money. And that's the end game for me. How do I save money while making the most money? We really do talk about these lenses like they're being made with plastic, like they're just being made with random optical formulas, and they're not. Majority of these lenses are either one-to-one direct copies and they advertise that, or they're just copying the lens formula of tried and true tested lenses. No one in the lab is throwing things together, just testing it out and throwing it out there. There usually is a method behind the madness on what they're putting out. Some lenses they're tuning for older Russian style lenses. Some lenses they're tuning for some sonar lens patterns. Some lenses they're tuning to look like this or like that or like whatever lens, but it's something you can always look up. And that's one thing I think you should do. It's good to learn about these lenses and the character and where they're coming from, and you might find a look that you actually enjoy. I think it's a TTArtisan's 35mm f1.2. It's a tiny pancake-ish lens. It was perfect on my XT30 and I absolutely loved it. And I learned later that that was actually a Russian copy, and that's the reason why it had some funky, swirly, crazy bokeh that I truly did adore for what it gave me. The character was great. It was built really solid, and even more, it was just fun to use. And that's the thing, is these lenses are fun to use. It is nice to not have to carry around your big ass lenses, your expensive glass, and not only think about, I don't want to hurt this, but also just have something you can have fun for. I love these Chinese lenses, especially the manual focus ones, for what they bring from the fun element. It is fun to be able to try to capture something, to have a quirky look, to have crazy flair. It is fun to be able to mess around and just take photos for leisure instead of trying to build your portfolio or your Instagram or Threads following. It is fun to be able to say, I got this TTArtisan's lens for $50 and it does this, than having to lug around an $800 lens and being worried about being a sore thumb sticking out in the middle of everywhere. There is an element of fun, an element of freedom that comes from purchasing these lenses. And again, if you get past the bias and the people that have never owned these lenses saying, oh, they're not that good, they're gonna fall apart, you'll have a great time. In the great words of I think it's the philosopher Pluto, you'll have a lot of fun with some budget Chinese lenses when it ain't a in your ear telling you that's a budget Chinese lens. So I just encourage you, look up these lenses and see what they look like. Look at the results, look up reviews, see what the optical pattern is, look at the MF charts, whatever in the world those things are called. Sincerely, look at them. A lot of these lenses might be things that are going to be great for you who are aspiring cinematographers and DPs and you want to get a different look or a special look in your images. I buy these lenses for that reason specifically, and a lot of you may just enjoy them because they may be things that blow you out of the water. For a lot of Leica users, I'm telling you right now, TTArtisan's has some of the greatest lenses you can get for budget. They're 35, 50, and they're 25 millimeter 1.4 lenses are great. They're sharp wide open, and even more, once you open them up, they're optically amazing. Their 35 APO is one of the best lenses I've ever used. And if you're someone who's willing to spend a little bit more money, I have to vouch for these Light Lens Lab lenses now, because this L-Cam completely blew me away. I was expecting to have a completely just character lens that I could use for fun when shooting portraits. And what I have is a lens that now I want to never take off of this body because it is just that damn good. And listen, if you're shooting with Fuji, you have just an embarrassment of riches from Meike, Bright Star, from TTArtisan, 7 Artisans. All these lenses give you fantastic, amazing looks, and a lot of them are just as fast with the same character as Voigtlander's $500, $600, $700, $800 lenses themselves. And again, it's just the ability to be able to slap these things on there at a cheaper cost to get the exact same performance that makes them such a great deal. We have an embarrassment of riches, and we're absolutely spoiled as videographers and photographers. And you shouldn't let someone's idea of Chinese lenses being cheap Chinese lenses, an idea that was brought in from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We weren't alive. Yeah, but don't let those hold you back. You might find a lens that's an absolute keeper, a lens that is super duper fun, and more importantly, a lens that won't break the bank for you to enjoy these things and have a keeper. With all that being said, I hope you understand what I'm saying, and yeah, take it light, but take it. Have a good one.